big India-Bhutan diplomacy and dosti boost. बड़े भाई मोदी in Bhutan.
यह सम्मान मेरी व्यक्तिगत उपलब्धि नहीं है। ये भारत और 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का सम्मान है।
What's the big message to China? Latest in recent weeks of India's strong message to China and to the world, and that's our top focus on India First. So from the inauguration of the all-weather Sela tunnel in Arunachal Pradesh to the launch of the Divyastra, the Agni 5 MIRV, from the militarization of the Lakshadweep island to the realignment of troops along India's northern borders or the India-Tibet border. The Narendra Modi government has taken a number of strong steps that are being closely watched not just by China but across the world. The United States, in fact, issued a statement reiterating that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India. So what's the message? What are the signals that are being sent out with these measures, including the Prime Minister's visit to Bhutan? I'm Gaurav Sawant. We debate. But first, as always, the headlines on India First. Arvind Kejriwal remanded to 6 days in Enforcement Directorate custody. The Delhi Chief Minister is remanded to ED custody till the 28th of March in the Delhi liquor probe. Aam Aadmi Party and other opposition alliance parties approached the Election Commission against Arvind Kejriwal's arrest. Claim opposition is being deliberately targeted ahead of elections. BJP calls Arvind Kejriwal the mastermind of the liquor scam. Another setback for the Congress. Delhi High Court dismisses the party's plea against income tax reassessment proceedings. No BJP-BJD alliance in Odisha. BJP ends all speculation. State party chief says it will fight solo on all 21 Lok Sabha seats in the state. Prime Minister Narendra Modi kicks off two-day Bhutan visit. He's honored with Bhutan's highest civilian award. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is currently in Bhutan. It's a very crucial visit. Bhutan, incidentally, was the first country that Prime Minister Modi visited when he became Prime Minister in 2014. Now, there are multiple special gestures by Bhutan on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit. So far, no Indian Prime Minister has been given a private dinner by the king before. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been given this privilege. It's also for the first time that an Indian Prime Minister is being hosted at the king's residence, at the Linkana Palace. And again, it's a first that the Indian Prime Minister was honored with Bhutan's highest civilian award. In fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the first foreign national to be awarded with the highest Bhutanese honor. Welcoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Bhutan's Prime Minister Sering Tobgay called him Bade Bhai. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was conferred the Order of the Druk Gyalpo, which is Bhutan's highest civilian order and award. Prime Minister Modi became the first foreign head of government to receive Bhutan's highest civilian honor. The citation read, Narendra Modi is an outstanding embodiment of national, regional and global leadership. Under him, India has become the fastest growing economy in the world and will be the third largest economy by 2030. Bhutan is honored that such a statesman of such stature is a true friend of the people of Bhutan. Prime Minister Modi is a firm supporter of Bhutan's national vision to achieve self-reliance and become a developed nation. Prime Minister Modi dedicated this award to 140 crore Indians. He spoke of boosting diplomatic ties. The Prime Minister signed multiple MOUs in his presence. Multiple MOUs were signed with Bhutan, and India announced an assistance of almost 10,000 crore rupees. Now, there was an unprecedented welcome for the Prime Minister. A human wall of sorts was present all along that stretch of 45 kilometers from Paro to Thimphu.
आज एक भारतीय के नाते मेरे जीवन का बहुत बड़ा दिन है। आपने मुझे भूटान के सर्वोच्च राष्ट्रीय अवार्ड से सम्मानित किया है। यह सम्मान मेरी व्यक्तिगत उपलब्धि नहीं है। ये भारत और 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का सम्मान है। मैं सभी भारतवासियों की ओर से यह सम्मान नम्रता से स्वीकार करता हूं और इस सम्मान के लिए आपका और भूटान की जनता का हृदय से कोटि-कोटि धन्यवाद करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और भूटान के संबंध जितने प्राचीन हैं, उतने ही नवीन और सामयिक भी है। योर मैजेस्टी, भारत और भूटान एक साझी विरासत का हिस्सा है। भारत भगवान बुद्ध की भूमि है, उनकी तपस्थली है। भारत वह भूमि है जहां बुद्ध को बोध प्राप्त हुआ था। भूटान ने भगवान बुद्ध की उन शिक्षाओं को आत्मसात किया, उन्हें संरक्षित किया। जिस प्रकार से भारत की विशेषताओं को, भारत के सांस्कृतिक परंपराओं को, भारत के गीत, संगीत, नृत्य को और खास करके मेरे गुजरात को आपने जिस प्रकार से यहां प्रस्तुत किया, कितने दिन मेहनत की होगी इसका मैं अंदाज लगा सकता हूं, लेकिन भारत आपके दिल में बसता है, तभी तो ऐसा आयोजन होता है।
And joining me on India First to talk more about this visit and a number of other developments that are taking place or have taken place in recent weeks and months are Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, former Kashmir co-commander, but somebody who's been watching China and India's northern borders very closely, and Sushant Sareen, senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. So let's talk about one development at a time. General Hasnain, Bhutan was also the first country that Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited once he became Prime Minister in 2014 as part of Neighbourhood First policy. And then this visit. Why is this visit, the timing and intent, both so crucial?
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for inviting me for this very, very important program. A delight to see the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister of ours. Heartiest congratulations to him, heartiest compliments to the whole nation for having recognized in this manner by the people of Bhutan. I would term this visit in three words: a returning confidence. A returning confidence. When it started in 2014, the confidence was building up tremendously, but in 2017, a great effort was made by China to try and dent this with Doklam. 72 days that standoff held on. And thereafter, there were doubts cast upon the strength of the Indo-Bhutan relationship, which was one of the strongest relationships which used to always exist. I'm glad to say that all of us who had perhaps doubts at that time can now look back at that period and say, okay, all that was fine. But today it's a returning confidence. The Prime Minister's gesture of making sure that the last visit, perhaps before the elections take place in India, is back to Bhutan again, just signifies the importance of this country for us, the importance of the neighborhood for India,
yes,
the importance of the fact that attempts have been made to isolate us within our own neighborhood. All this is a huge message going out. You can't do this to India, the rising India, the new India, which is slated to be a power of on its own in the years to come.
Okay, Sushant Sareen, China has unsettled borders both with Bhutan and Bharat. The Prime Minister's visit to Bhutan and the intent, the signal to the people of Bhutan and the signal to China across.
Yeah, Gaurav, I think it's a signal to the people of Bhutan that India, with all this talk globally of India being the 5th largest economy, going on to become the 3rd largest economy, sitting on the high table with the world powers, etc., etc. I think the messaging is very clear that it's still neighborhood first for at least this Prime Minister and maybe for Indian foreign policy. So I think that's a very clear message, number one. Number two, I think it's a very clear message to the Chinese as well as, and I'm very glad General Hasnain pointed this out, there was a growing degree of skepticism even within India of whether Bhutan is hedging its bets, etc., etc. But I think kudos to Indian diplomats and the Ministry of External Affairs, professional diplomats who did not get, dissuaded by all this skepticism which was doing the rounds. It was doing the rounds among people of the armed forces. It was doing the rounds among the so-called alleged intelligentsia in India. It was doing the rounds among a whole lot of people. But I think the diplomats stuck to their guns. They continue to invest themselves in this very critical relationship which we have. And I think there's a certain amount of pragmatism and maturity which was there in both Bhutan as well as India, that yes, there will be other options which will start opening up. You cannot expect Bhutan to be completely closed up. Bhutan has its own agency. India recognizes that.
Okay.
And despite all of that, the bonds between the two countries are very, very close and they are virtually unshakable. So I think this visit kind of reaffirms that point. Of course, there are issues, and let's not make any mistake about it. There are issues between the two countries, but I think they are going to be resolved in a very cooperative and mutually beneficial manner.
Now let's expand this beyond Bhutan,
even to the Chinese.
Okay, let's expand this beyond Bhutan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had recently travelled to Arunachal Pradesh. He inaugurated the Sela tunnel at about 13,000 feet plus. This was remotely inaugurated. This is a tunnel built by the Border Roads Organization at a cost of about 850 odd crore rupees. This was inaugurated remotely. It's from Itanagar. The Prime Minister had laid the foundation stone of this tunnel. This is the world's longest two-lane tunnel at 13,000 feet plus in February 2019. And in March 2024, the tunnel is ready to provide all-weather connectivity to Tawang, and this clearly will not be music to China's ears. But I want to once again take this to General Hasnain. General Hasnain, we've read about what happened in 1962, how that part of Arunachal Pradesh, the problems in Sela, in Bomdila, in Tawang, the debacle in 1962, and the Sela tunnel today. How does this prove to be, if at all, a game changer?
Wonderful question. Thank you. Gaurav, you are asking someone whose regiment and battalion fought the Battle of Jaswantgarh,
yes, sir,
just on the other side of Sela Pass, in the northern slopes of Sela Pass, at a place called Nuranang, as covering troops action at that time. Sela was the new main position which the Indian Army had chosen at that time to defend Kameng. As such, the Kameng division of Arunachal Pradesh, that time known as NIFA. And we knew very well when we had returned to Tawang subsequently that the defense of Tawang, the defense of Kameng, the defense of the area south of the Sela Tunnel would all be very, very vulnerable because of the fact that in winter there was no way that we could go over the Sela Pass. We could perhaps do an infantry movement across the Sela Pass, but there would be no vehicular movement going across, which meant you couldn't take reinforcements, you couldn't take ammunition and stocks on the other side, and you could give a battle for just the number of days that you were stocked for. This is a game changer. What Sela Tunnel has done is a game-changing act, which is that at a height of a little over 3,000 meters, they've gone and constructed this 1.5 kilometer tunnel, a double-way tunnel, circumventing the height of 13,000 feet, which is what Sela is, which means that you now 24/7, 365 days of the year, the Indian Army and its generals can ensure that they have their strategy in place and can defend or do whatever they want. It's not necessarily to just defend, to do whatever they want in the manner of military operations as far as Arunachal Pradesh and the Kameng division itself is concerned. More important than that is the fact that we showed the gumption, we showed the strategic effect of ensuring that we could construct infrastructure there. Game-changing strategic infrastructure in Arunachal Pradesh, an area which China calls Southern Tibet and lays claim to, and objects to our Prime Minister going to the capital there to inaugurate the Sela Tunnel. I think this was the message which was sent across very, very appropriately.
And you know, I've been privileged, I've reported on the construction of the Sela Tunnel, I've reported from Tawang, Sushant Sareen, but this border infrastructure that's been made all along, all the way from Arunachal Pradesh to Daulat Beg Oldi in Ladakh, what's the signal to China and how would China be viewing India's infrastructure development, sir?
So, Gaurav, let me just add something to what General Hassan has said, and maybe he's just missed that out, but I think it's probably he was alluding to it. Until recently, the Indian defense posture was a defensive one. And as this was articulated by the former defense minister, Mr. Antony, in Parliament, that, the thinking was that if we don't build our infrastructure, if the Chinese make inroads, then, they will not be able to advance very high. I think this kind of infrastructure activity on the Indian side shows the kind of confidence which is there in the Indian armed forces that, look, we are not going to be fighting only a defensive war. We are going to take the war right into your own territory. So just lay off, right? And I think this shows a change in the kind of mindset which is there in the Indian defense forces, in the Indian armed forces, that, we are building up this infrastructure. Apart from the fact that, yes, we can supply our troops, the logistics lines, as General Hasnain was mentioning, but aside of that, you can take this thing forward, which is why you are also setting up a strike corps in the eastern sector. And the reason for that is that, no, this is not just going to be that, okay, fine, we'll be hunkering down, waiting for you to come and defending our territory. Don't be surprised if we are going to pull a couple of surprises on you and taking the war into your territory. So I think
which, as you very rightly know, is not their territory. Mindset. China's an illegal occupation of Tibet. But at the recent India Today conclave, I'd asked the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, about the challenges that India faces at our borders. And does the solution lie in the Indian Ocean region? He also spoke of the significance of the Agni 5 Divyastra test. Listen in.
I'm a strong proponent of geography. It shapes the strategic outlook of nations. For us, the Himalayas have been providing us security since ages, actually. But of late, because of advancement of technology, you can know that the Himalayas are no longer an impediment because you have missiles, you have aircrafts, and then, of course, we've been able to breach it by advancing mobility options in Himalayas. So, to some extent, the impregnability of Himalayas, if I would say, has diminished slightly for us. But then, of course, we also have a geographical advantage because of our peninsular shape. It juts out into the Indian Ocean, flanked by two island territories, which gives us a lot of strategic depth. And the access to Indian Ocean region is very, very restricted, and we enjoy a predominant position. So I think we need to balance out between our continental challenges and maritime challenges.
Tell us more about this Divyastra that India has just tested. Why is the testing of the Agni 5, the MIRV, so significant?
Let me say that we have a nuclear doctrine which professes no first use. And I think hence the credibility of our deterrence has to be very, very high. This particular test actually testifies this, that, the credibility of our doctrine. When we talked about deterrence, there's an element of communication into it. That means we should be able to communicate. If you don't communicate to the adversary what you possess, then the deterrences have got no value. So this particular test is a part of a communication. So this will strengthen deterrence, and I believe in the long run will promote strategic stability in the neighborhood. But right now, I think it's time to congratulate all those people who are involved in the test, especially DRDO.
Okay. Last 20 seconds on this part of the broadcast, but General Hasnain, India and what we're doing in the Lakshadweep Islands and the Agni 5 test, what's the significance, sir? What's the message to China?
Once again, thank you. Excellent question. The issue is India has had a continental mindset. We have been dug down, we've been hunkered down by the fact that in 1962, when China went to war with us, we couldn't defend ourselves. And thereafter, our approach has been entirely defensive, exactly what Sushant was just talking about. And even in subsequent years, if you really look at it, we never exploited the maritime domain. The maritime domain is where China's vulnerability lies. Its 14% growth, its average 10% growth over many years has been enabled because of the sea lines of communication which have moved unhampered, unhindered by India, right from the Suez to the Straits of Malacca to the eastern seaboard of China where the manufacturing centers are. And from there, the returning traffic, container traffic of goods which have gone all the way to South Asia, Middle East, Europe and Africa. Now, if this area is where the Chinese feel vulnerable, that's the area where India needs to be a little more aggressive. I won't say provocative. We have no intention of doing anything aggressive there as such.
Okay.
But I think the adequate messaging should be there that this is this is the domain where we can make a difference. And that's exactly what's happening with the Andaman and Nicobar Command and the setting up of the Lakshadweep facility.
I've run out of time on this part of the show. Sushant Sareen and General Hasnain for joining me here on India First. Many thanks. It is India First. A strong posture, a strong policy. That is what India is actually implementing now on ground. Much more on this in the days and weeks ahead. A quick break. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.